Spanish, and Arabic. If you want to listen to Arabic, please select the Korean channel. We are also streaming live on the Facebook Industrial website page and recording in the different languages, so you can watch it again later and share it with your contacts. I also remind you that you can write your questions in the question section below, and the panelists will answer them during the session. But what is the reason we wanted to organize this session? CEL has declared today as CEL Safety Day, but what is the reality faced by the workers? Does it match with CEL's claims? In their latest sustainability report, CEL says their top priority is keeping employees and contractors safe, but 7 people were killed while working for CEL in 2019. 3 of them were permanent workers in the United States, and the other 4 were contractors in Nigeria, United States, and Pakistan. This is why we want to know what is the reality faced by workers at CEL. What are our rights when we talk about health and safety at work? Does CEL respect the decisions taken by its workers to protect themselves? Does CEL provide proper protection equipment? CEL workers deserve guarantees and protection for their health and safety, particularly around the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. To respond to these questions, we have with us Kemal Özkan, Assistant General Secretary at IndustriALL, and Brian Kohler, expert on occupational health and safety, to give us the keys and tools on occupational health and safety. Also with us today are 3 colleagues representing workers from CEL: Josie De Lang from the Netherlands and member of FNB, Afolabi Olawale from Nigeria and member of NUPENG, and Lee Medley from the United States, member of the United Steelworkers. We will have short presentations from all the panelists, and after that, we will have time for questions and comments. I would like to start giving the floor to Kemal Özkan. Kemal, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are passing through very tough times at this time of COVID-19, and our sensitivities are very high. We are losing our relatives, we are losing our members, and this crisis is different than what we used to have in 2008 and 9. At that time, we lost our employment, we lost our income, but this time we are losing our lives. Now, it is very high time we seek responsibility. It is very high time we seek accountability with the governments, with the employers. IndustriALL Global Union is conducting a campaign against Shell for a couple of years. We are seeking justice, and we are seeking the real responsibility, accountability, traceability with all the policies and actions of this important oil company. We have a quite trust problem with Shell. This trust problem is because they are categorically refusing dialogue with workers, dialogue with unions, dialogue with all the stakeholders. They publish just the report, sustainability report, and the climate ambition report, and the contribution to sustainable development goals. Now the question from our side, responsible business, what is it exactly? Is it just ticking the box exercise by creating a kind of a corporate social responsibility department and a budget for CSR, and just for greenwashing and for showing the company more ethical, more responsible than what it claims to be? So this is why today we wanted to organize this webinar with all the stakeholders. We have quite problems with Shell. We have problem with their the policies and implementations of the human rights, labor rights. And Shell's annual shareholders meeting recently held virtually. And then we raised quite questions with our concerns about the working conditions in Shell workplaces throughout the world. And we are consistently campaigning against the very high level of casualization. And more than 80% of the workers working for Shell has precarious employment contracts. And Shell is using this for just degrading their working conditions. And those workers with precarious contracts live in poverty without any job security, without any health care, and very little health and safety protections. And this is why this trust problem with Shell now, while they organize their own safety day, we also wanted to organize our own one. So, and then we want to make the company accountable. And look at their sustainability report, health and safety. There is no any single word about workers, as if everything is conducted by managers, by the company itself, without any reference to any the workers' involvement. And they just reduce their health and safety approach to the numbers. Workers are not numbers, workers are people. And we want to make the company responsible and accountable. And again, Industrial Global Union is seeking a dialogue, a genuine dialogue, coming together, raising all the issues, listening each other, and finding solutions all together. And I again call on the company management again. Please listen this voice. This voice is the voice of workers. What you claim to be is not the reality on the ground. And we will share all the truth with the public opinion all over the world. And we are now inviting, calling, urging the company to come to a common sense, to the table, to listen to workers, and to show the reality to the public opinion, different than what they are putting in their reports with sustainability, with annual report. Then I am pretty sure that so there is a quite interest right now, and after the presentations, we are very much prepared to do a good discussion on the basis of the questions that are already raised and that are coming to the box for answering. I thank everyone for joining, and let's do a good session for making sure that the Shell workers' voice is heard.
Thank you very much, Kemal. Now I would like to give the floor to Brian. Brian, could you please let us know what are the main, the basic rights for workers everywhere in their workplaces, but of course at Shell?
Yeah, thanks, Diana. So I have about 10 minutes to talk to you about health and safety at Shell. And what I'm not going to do is waste it trying to analyze Shell's lost time injury rate. We know it's meaningless anyway. Instead, I want to talk to you about what Shell actually does, what its attitudes are. Is it more interested in controlling hazards or controlling you? The labor movement has long described health and safety as a matter of three workers' rights and employers' responsibilities, in particular in health and safety. We demand the right to know fully about the hazards of our work. We demand the right to participate as at least equal partners in health and safety decision-making. And we demand the right to refuse or to shut down unsafe work without the fear of reprisals from the employer. So as a former Shell employee myself, let me ask you, is Shell honoring your right to know about the hazards of work? A typical refinery or chemical plant has an on-site inventory of dangerous substances in the thousands. Where I used to work, it was around 10,000. Perhaps you have material safety data sheets for all of these. I don't know if you do, maybe you do. But even if you do, how many of them have sections filled with no information, or not applicable? How many of them have phrases like, there is no evidence that this chemical is carcinogenic? The key word in that phrase is not carcinogenic. The key word in that phrase is evidence. No evidence means precisely what it says. Usually it means that the chemical in question has never been tested for toxic or carcinogenic or mutagenic or any other potential. There is no evidence. Why are you being asked to expose yourself to a chemical that no evidence of safety exists for? Lost time injury rates are just a number to hide behind. Now, how many occupational illnesses are there? That's what I would like to know. Or should I maybe rephrase that? Has there been any concerted effort to identify occupational illnesses? And please don't tell me about workplace medical surveillance. It's there mainly to control compensation claims, not to conduct epidemiology. And by the way, are you full partners in Shell's medical surveillance programs? Are you able to verify that medical confidentiality is protected and that the doctor sees you, the worker, as his or her patient and not Shell, the company? What about retirees? Cancer usually has a latency period of from 10 to 40 years or more. Has Shell ever done a study on former workers to find out what they died of? And if Shell did, was the report couched in words like, oh, these illnesses reflected the working conditions of the time and do not reflect working conditions today? Well, let's go back to those safety data sheets again for a moment. Have you received the necessary education and training to fully understand what's on them and what it means to your health? I've just explained that no evidence of harm is not the same thing as evidence of no harm. How many workers in your bargaining units could tell me what an LD50 is? How many could explain to me what a teratogen is? Even worse, do the workers understand the criteria for ingredient disclosure are dangerously loose to begin with, and even those loose criteria are routinely violated with spurious claims of confidential business information? Let me tell you about confidential business information, or so-called trade secrets. First, it was not supposed to apply to human health information. But really, there is no such thing. It's a fiction, especially in the oil and chemical business. Shell has some of the best equipped laboratories in the world and routinely buys competitors' products the moment they appear on the market, analyzes them down to the molecular level, and can confidently determine from that how it was made. Trade secrecy does not keep information out of the hands of competitors. They already know. What it does do, and successfully, is keep information out of the hands of workers and consumers. That's what it's intended to do. What about your right to participate? Does Shell interpret this as your duty to participate in some kind of behavior-based safety observations of your fellow workers and issue them, reports or tickets for any mistakes they make? Or do you have real and meaningful role in occupational health and safety decision-making in your workplace? Do you have an effective joint health and safety committee? Is it involved in the design and implementation of all health and safety policies, programs, procedures, accident investigations, inspections, audits, and risk assessments? Who assesses risks? I can tell you, if I drive around Geneva or any other city and fire a gun at random out of my car window and kill somebody, it's a crime. But if I'm an employer and I fire carcinogenic molecules at my workers at random and one of you die, it's an occupational disease resulting from an acceptable risk. Acceptable to who? The only people with the moral authority to assess a risk are those who face the risk. I'm almost willing to bet that Shell is heavily invested in behavior-based safety programs. Oh, they may have different nice-sounding names, but it's so much easier to blame the careless worker than it is to re-engineer a refinery or a chemical plant to prevent exposure to a hazard. But don't you find it strange that in a workplace where everything is decided for you, the process, the product, the equipment, the throughput, the chemicals you'll be working with, and even the clothing you wear, that when something goes wrong, the fault is yours? I've investigated hundreds, maybe thousands of accidents in my career, and I can tell you, even when a worker does something that at first seems inexplicable or careless, you must always assume that it made sense to that worker at that time to do it that way. And usually this has something to do with production pressures or trying to get the job done without the proper tools or equipment. An accident investigation needs to find out why it made sense to that worker at that time, not simply stamp careless on the accident investigation and forget about the hazards. Safety results from systems that provide the correct and safe materials, tools, equipment, work environment, job procedures, management priorities, and yes, skilled workers. But focusing on just one of these is an error. If the only thing between you and an accident is relying on 100% vigilance 100% of the time from your workers, I guarantee you an accident. And finally, let's not forget that we demand the right to refuse unsafe work or shut down unsafe work if we observe it. In any other walk of life, I have the right to take action or refuse to put myself in harm's way to protect my life. Why does that right disappear the moment I report for work? Some of you will say, and Shell might even agree, that of course you have the right to refuse unsafe work. Well, if that's so, please tell me, how many work refusals have there been at your workplace in the last year, and what was the outcome? Did management investigate and correct the hazards? Did fellow workers support the refusal, or were they coerced into doing a job that somebody else had refused? And don't even get me started on emergency preparedness and response when there's barely enough workers in a typical modern refinery to run it when everything's running smoothly. I know this company. I worked for Shell for 12 years. In many ways, they're no worse than any other petrochemical major, and they're better than some. But they have never fully embraced us as partners. Since 1973, when a national strike was necessary to force them to pay attention to health and safety, until this very day when they still refuse to recognize IndustriALL Global Union as their interlocutor at the global level, they have always clung to the idea that health and safety is purely a management prerogative. But it's our lives, it's our health, it's our body parts. Shell may think they are doing a good job on occupational health and safety, but their workers are still getting injured, they're still getting ill, and they're still dying. We are the real experts in health and safety. It's our workplaces, and we know what's going on there, and we demand a real seat at the decision-making table. At every level, workplace, regional, national, and global. Because if we're not seated at the table, we'll be on the menu. Well, I'll leave it there. I expect there'll be some more questions later, but thanks for that.
Thank you, Brian. Diana's just having a brief technical problem with her microphone. So while we sort that out, let me introduce the next speaker, who is Josia from FNV in the Netherlands.
Yes. Well, thank you, Brian. That was very impressive. I can so imagine what's happening. You're describing situations, but I heard already from my members. So thank you very much for that. I think I just explained a little bit about the Dutch situation, but only a part of the Dutch situation, because we have refineries in Pernis and Moerdijk, and we also have a part of Shell which is concentrated in NAM, which is about oil and gas. And there I want to share something about the safety on that part of the Dutch Shell. I think in the Netherlands, safety is quite good arranged. And if you ask me if members are able to say, okay, I don't want to work here because it's unsafe, it does happen. I don't know if it happens every time, And I don't want to say it because I'm really not sure. And especially, I think when it's a fixed worker, yeah, and you have a fixed contract, it's more easy to say something about safety when you don't have a permanent contract. So if you look now at the situation now during COVID, I think safety is one of the things that is, of course, the main issue everywhere. And I think Shell is an example in the offshore industry in the Netherlands. I think in a few days, they just go to skeleton crew and say, okay, this is the only necessary crew is on site, and the rest just goes onshore. And the rest of the oil and gas companies follows the lead of Shell. So I think they can give examples, or they make examples for other companies. But on the other hand, and I think I would like it to say it here, because I think there are examples, even in the Netherlands, where I can say, okay, is this the way to go? And are we fully, as you are saying, are we fully committed to the safety issue in Shell? And we as unions, and not only as unions, but also as members of unions, are we a full partner on the table? And that is a thing which I think is, even in the Netherlands, not already there. And yes, they want to negotiate with us, and they want to speak with us. But if we talk about safety, there's always a workers' council or a manager or something else. So yes, we can speak about the issue of safety, but when it's really about a practical issue, then there's always a manager, or there's always someone who knows more about it than we or our members. So I think this is it says something about that situation. And maybe later on I will say something about what's happening now because of the drop of the oil prices, because I think that is also have an effect on safety on workers. Diana, are you again here?
Yeah, thank you very much, Josie. Thanks a lot. Now I would like to jump into Nigeria. Brother Afolabi, could you please let us know how is the situation with the contract workers in Nigeria? Could you please let us know the differences between contract workers and permanent workers in Nigeria? Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. I'm the General Secretary of Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers. The union represents all the blue-collar workers in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. I want to appreciate Brian for the opening statement he made about the rights of workers when it comes to health and safety. In Nigeria, there is not a single permanent worker that is unionized. All blue-collar workers have been outsourced. They are on contract casual level. So the situation of their health and safety is as precarious as their work. Out of the total lots that have been outsourced, we have been able to unionize only the fleet workers, the drivers. All other categories of workers, like the maintenance, utility, and all other blue-collar workers, they are not unionized. And Shell use them like a PR to the community. So when we are talking about health and safety, this set of workers have no right to even discuss issue of health and safety in the workplaces. They don't participate or contribute in any discussion. Neither do they have the power to stop work because of health and safety issue. Because in the first instance, if you're a casual worker, you don't have direct link with Shell management. Your direct relationship is with your contractor, the person that brought you to work. And most times, these people that employs you as contract workers, they are not directly in the workplaces. They don't know the health issues on ground. So the workers, the contract workers are left in the limbo. They are neither discussing with the Shell management, nor with the contractor that brings them to Shell premises. The contractor himself does not even know issues about health and safety in the installations. And when it comes to issue of provision of safety equipment, Shell is not providing directly. It is expected that the contractor will provide for these workers. And the contractor are more preoccupied with making money. So the quality of equipment is also called to question. Then when it comes to medical facilities, the hospitals, they don't have the right to attend the same hospital as the permanent workers. They go to other hospitals, and most of these medical practitioners do not even understand the issue of health and safety, the issue of equipment, the substance that are being used in oil and gas. What nature of health matters, health issues are these workers being exposed to? So most time when they go for medical treatment, they are treated on general level. And many of them instrumentally die. And when they retire, they carry everything they've been exposed to their retirement. That has been the situation because as long as they are not direct employee, and as long as they are not having direct engagement with the operator of the installation directly, they are just ordinary numbers. The next aspect of it is currently during this COVID-19, the casual workers, the contract workers are the main victims. As we are talking now, the contractors have been given mandates to go and reduce the number of workers. And the discussion is, we are giving you, go ahead and cut down this total number. In fact, as we are in this discussion, I've received text messages of the number that have been given in some section of the country. Nigeria oil and gas workers, most especially the contract and casual workers that I represent with Shell, they are at the receiving end when it comes to health and safety issues. They are not given the information about what are the health matters about the equipment they are using, the hazard around them. They are not on the table to discuss these matters. And because their job is precarious, they are not in position to even hold down work. Every day they go to work, they are happy that another day is added to their work life because there is no guarantee of employment. And when we look at health and safety matter, even as a driver, if you are not sure of your employment tomorrow, you're already disturbed emotionally and psychologically, that even in handling tools and equipment, you are prone to make mistakes. If you are bothered about what is happening at home or with an health issue you are carrying, how will you concentrate 100% to even avoid accident? Precarious work is already a ground for accident at work. I think, let me give room for question and answer so that we can continue with this.
Yeah, thank you, brother. We will have time now to, after the last panelist, we will have time for questions and answers, and you can continue talking about this. I would like to give the floor now to our comrade from the United States, Lee Medley. I've said in my intervention at the beginning that 4 out of 7 workers in the United States were killed in the past year, so those figures are terrible. Could you please let us know how is the situation of your colleagues there?
So the health and safety here in the United States, well, let me first say the other panelists are impressive. Brian, my hat's off to Brian. He really hit home with a lot of the messages that he put out there. as you said, my name is Lee Medley. I'm the president of the National Shell Council in the United States. So we have facilities across the states. I've been in Shell for 30 years, 40 years in the industry. And if I said Shell hadn't made improvements, I wouldn't be telling the truth. But there's still a long way to go. We've come a long way from going home with chemicals all over us to our money and keys being different colors, from being exposed to H2S. We do see a big push on behavioral-based safety, as Brian was speaking of. I'm not a strong believer in it, never have been. You know, we do have a summit investigation process, which is probably one of the better things we have. But in 2015, we had a work stoppage. We went on strike, and the truth came out. When we came back into the plant, they stripped us of just about every health and safety position, title, people working on it. We had probably 120 guys, men and women, that were working in a safety program we had developed. They were all removed, every one of them. So we're just now getting back to where we need to be. But we still have major issues. And Shell does a good job of advertising and saying how safe they are. But every day you go to work, you wear a monitor around your chest for toxic gases, instead of spending the money to locate these dangerous areas and having remote monitors. You actually have to walk into the gas to set the monitor off. It's kind of like the old canary. I know many of y'all know the canary with the miners, but guess who the canary is? It's you. You know, my challenge to Shell is, if you have a strong health and safety program, it doesn't matter who your manager is. But our health and safety goes up and down by the quality of the manager, how much they're willing to put into it. One thing that we see constantly is use of contractors to pressure us to do other people's work. Cross-training, they want our operators to do maintenance work when they're there to operate the plant. You know, we're a fixed cost to them that can go up and down as needed. But my facility no longer has a Boilermaker in it. And I'm a pipe fitter, but they are two different crafts. So we still see a lot of challenges. I will say again that Shell as a whole is better than a lot of the companies we deal with. But is that a good statement? You know, okay, they're the best of or one of the best of a group of people that kill people, you know. And as Brian had mentioned, you know, what scares me as a 30-year employee, 40 years in the industry, is what do I take out of that plant with me when I retire? I don't maybe not see it, but we do have a lot of our brothers and sisters that once they retire tend to make it a year or two and they got cancer. We buried a couple of them. I buried a couple of good friends this year that weren't retired for long. So we have a great deal of many challenges in the U.S. today. The climate right now, political climate, is bad for workers. They're constantly changing things. We do not have the ability to arbitrate health and safety issues. We can't grieve them. So if you have, there's no recourse for the company to break the rules because we don't have that ability to take them on. Contractors continue to, I think the company even has admitted it, the training for the contractors as far as on their craft is weak. And you have a major turnaround, you have problem getting workers. I've said for a long time here at home, if they have a major turnaround, you can't get a pizza delivered to your house because they're out there working as pipe fitters. Don't want to be all gloom and doom, but we still have a long way to go. And we're not involved with their health and safety day to day. So why is that? At one time we were. We had made great strides, I believe, until 2015. And again, that's 5 years ago, and we're just now getting back to our guys being able to move around. Our health and safety committee in our facility does not have the ability to move around. And if they do address health and safety issues, they're usually after hours, on break, or at lunchtime. So that's kind of the challenges we're facing. Nothing like the brother in Nigeria, with due respect to him and his people. That's truly tragic. Sometimes we do forget how good we do have it. So, but again, Brian was on spot on everything he said. As a 30-year employee, I'll say that. So thank you for letting me participate.
Thank you very much, Lee. I think that the comment that you made about the canary, the simile about the canary and the mines, I think that is self-explanatory, and we can understand very well what you want to say. So thank you all the panelists. Thanks for your interventions. Now I would like to start the part about the discussion and questions and answers. So feel free to jump in whenever you want. I would like to start with a question because we have already heard from Nigeria about the contract workers, but I would like to know how is the situation also for the contract workers in the Netherlands and in the United States, because we know that they also have these similar situations. Could you please, Josie, maybe can start giving us some ideas?
Yes, of course. I think the situation for the contract workers in the Netherlands is that they're now very unsure about their jobs. So, of course, if you are talking about safety, even in the Netherlands, which is, I think, we organized a few things quite well, you see that there is a difference between contract workers and workers with a permanent contract about health and safety issues. Because contract workers, for example, they aren't joining the Shell Safety Day. It's one example. So I hope that they all join this webinar. But I think that is one of the main points. If you are working for Shell, then you should join as well the Shell Safety Day. I think that's one point that we can take out of today. And I think that is an example for the rest of the days, because of course you need to have a license when you enter certain plants or certain areas. But the real thing about safety is not that you have your license, but that you know about why and how to act, and that you can work together as real colleagues with your permanent workers. And I think even in the Netherlands, that's quite difficult. And then you have the effect of the uncertainty, because now of the oil crisis or the drop of the prices, you can see that there are a lot of redundancies. And of course, the first one who go out are those with the contractors. So yes, they're also in the Netherlands. It's like the second worker. It's not, yeah.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Lee?
In the United States, you take my state, Texas, the workforce in Texas is 4% union. So it's 96% non-union. So the contractors, and we're what we call in the U.S. an at-will employer. So if you're a contractor, many of which are poorly trained, they can fire you for any reason whatsoever. They don't have to show just cause. You can just be fired. So that goes a long way in people keeping their mouths shut. You know, if you're too outspoken, you're going to go down the road. And these men and women are looking at, I have to feed my family. So while we talk a good game, the situation is they can't speak up. You know, the Shell and marathons and all that will say anyone can stop a job. Well, you go ahead and do that. And about 3 months down the road, guess what? You're not going to have a job. So, and they pit workers against workers. So we don't interact with contractors very much because most of our people view it as they're after our jobs. The companies use it to keep wages down, keep benefits down. You're lucky if you have insurance, health insurance. There's good and bad contractors, but at the same time, without having the ability to bargain or protect yourself, it lends itself to a very quiet group of people. And we have no licensing whatsoever. You don't have to have a licensing. They have a worker safety council that shows some little ass movie, and that's supposed to make you safe.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee.
Intervention here too.
Please, yeah, please.
I listened to my brother Lee and my sister from Netherlands, and let me give you this scenario. In Africa, we have what is called banana. The bunch of banana is a bunch on the tree. It start getting bad from the sides, even if it's on the tree. It start getting bad right from the side. So there is a proverbial saying that those banana at the center always feel secured. Oh, that it is those as the periphery that are getting bad, that I will never get bad. Just like COVID-19. When Shell started operation in Nigeria, the entire workforce, right to the gardener, tea girl, gatesman, were permanent workers. They were unionized workers. But gradually, they started reducing these workers. My brother Lee mentioned about 96% of workers in the United States are contract workers, and they are not unionized. When it comes to issue of health and safety, as long as you are not unionized, you don't have a single voice to fight, to seek what is right, to even know what your rights are. The second thing is about as long as you are in precarious employment, you cannot talk about health and safety. You cannot say you are safe at work. Because the first condition to safety at work is the assurance that I have some element of security at work in terms of job security as well. So the situation we find ourselves now, we need a lot of global coalition, campaign effort and advocacy to save the workers, to save unions from going into extinct. The rate at which capital is going is to casualize every worker, to weaken their powers, to divide them. COVID-19 has exposed us further. Many operators are working from home. And this is going to create further division and further weakening of the labor movement if we don't find a way out quickly. Thank you.
And just for clarification, Texas is 4%, the US is 11%.
But maybe to add something on the positive side of COVID, it sounds maybe a little bit strange, but what I also heard from our workers is that because in the Netherlands, Shell is taking it very seriously, that means that a lot of operators are working from home, have a less stress, less ad hoc planning, and everything is very carefully examined, whether you should go or not. So it means that there is a kind of positive side to it, because they're saying, okay, let's now unionize and let's find out, can we just keep this kind of less stress workplace after the whole COVID, if there is, or is a possibility. And of course, because the nice thing in the Netherlands is that there are a lot of workers who aren't working now and just sitting on the couch, but they still get paid. So that's of course a completely different situation than if you are a contractor or not. But it is a starting position when you can say, okay, if we start working again, can we just add the more safe environment that we created now in our future workspace?
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks. And I was wondering, what about the drop of the oil prices? Do you think that it has have a direct impact on the health and safety, not on the layoffs of workers and so on? Direct impact on the health and safety for workers in Shell?
I haven't seen any difference. We did have two facilities in the U.S., the Anacortes plant and a mobile plant that Shell was trying to sell, and they weren't able to sell them due to the fact that oil prices fell. So those brothers and sisters are still under the Shell umbrella. We do have in the U.S., if under the steelworker contract, we have if a company buys one of our refineries, they buy the contract. So we have a successorship language that protects our workers to an extent. But it's always the benefits have to be equal in the aggregate, and guess who decides what the aggregate is. So I haven't seen a big change in that. I will say the COVID, only the staff people are working from home. All the hourly day workers, they're still here. They have not missed a day. They never pulled them out of the plant. They laid the contractors off, but while they allowed the company people to work from home, all of our people are still working. And if you've seen some of the changes in the United States, most of the things that they did not apply to companies with over 500 employees. So lots and lots of people were left out of the loop.
Well, I think that in the Netherlands, because of the drop of the oil prices, of course there will be redundancies, and they try to do it voluntarily. But there's another aspect, because if you look at, they have now a tender for the helicopter flights to the platforms. And the strange thing is, there are a lot of companies who would like to do those flights, but now there is a winner, which last year can't be a winner because then they didn't have the correct license. So the strange thing is, because of this tender, this one company is cheaper, but we know why they are cheaper, because they fly even when there's a storm outside. So yes, we understand why it's cheaper. So in relationship to health and safety, I think that those kind of things are happening now, and not only at Shell, but in this example at Shell. So, and that's why we're now trying to organize not only the Shell workers, but also the pilots, because I think this is unsafe for every worker involved.
Thank you all for responding. Now we have a question from Mudiaga Atimati from Nigeria. He's asking us, how does IndustriALL plan to stop massive sacking workers worldwide, especially regarding this COVID-19 pandemic? Who wants to respond? Maybe Kemal?
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Indeed, this oil, the price decline has created a situation in the oil industry in general. And we started to hear quite a number of mass dismissals. The latest one came from BP from the UK, and around 10,000 people. And we need to do the fight together. And we need to fight together against all those other big notorious oil companies. And this unity and exchange of information and building solidarity is the only response that we can give to the multinational companies, because those multinational companies, including Shell, they have a big complacency when it comes to the fundamental rights, when it comes to the employment, when it comes to the health and safety conditions. If I return to this contractors issue in Nigeria, Industrial Global Union conducted a very extensive research over the working conditions of contractors of Shell in Nigeria. And then with videos, with testimonies, with workers disabled, with the families of diseased workers. And then we raised the question to the company CEO at the shareholders meeting. And of course, he failed to address the substance of those questions. Let's look at what he said. The first thing he said, Shell complies with local laws. Wow, what a commitment. I think as if it is a favor. You have to comply with local legislation. This is not a favor to anyone. Then you have to deliver it. But you hide yourself behind the poor legislations in developing countries. And another answer he has given, Shell endeavors to make continuous performance improvements. Wow, this is a really handsome answer, huh? Performance improvements. We are talking about lives of workers. We are talking about our health, and just performance improvement. Come on, what are you saying? Are you seeking? So you were talking about license. Can any company have any social license to operate if there is no responsibility, if there is no transparency? And he also answered us telling that contractors are independent corporate entities. Wow. But he fails to take the responsibility, due diligence. And all the companies have responsibility to make due diligence over the human rights violations, labor rights violations. And he also said they want to make sure that the contractors comply with local law in the country concerned. So he never addressed and answered any question we raised on the basis of the factual realities in Nigeria. So this is the phase of the company. This is why there is no trust from our side. And then without having such trust, the company cannot have any social license to operate. He also did the same for climate change issues. So he was asked in the presence of shareholders about the commitment for Paris Agreement. And what he said, I have to ask you for some patience. And so the business that we have built over more than a century, we cannot change that overnight. Wow, what a responsibility. What an answer. So this is why I again repeat myself to the company that so we want to have a genuine dialogue. We want to have a situation where the workers' rights are respected and implemented, and our rights are not on the table for sale or for negotiations. Our lives are and health are not on the table for negotiation. So this is why, returning back to the question raised by our comrade in relation to the dismissals happening right now, the only way for the workers is to be together, to be in unity, and constructing an answer, a response, a reaction together. So this is the answer, and this is why we organize this event today, and with the involvement of everyone with excellent contributions to show that the workers of Shell, every corner of the world, are united. And we are seeking justice. We are seeking respect for our fundamental rights.
Thank you very much, Kemal. Now we have another question from Bradley Goss from Unifor in Canada. For the colleagues that are representing Shell workers, do you feel that process safety is a real priority at your work sites in Shell? Maybe Lee can respond this question.
I would say we actually negotiated a position to make it a priority in our contractual national oil bargaining, which you got to attend recently, Diana. That was one of our main issues. And the company offered us a process safety person or a health and safety person, not both. But I think we are still filling the position out, but we do have somebody. And once again, if you're in a facility, I believe it's under 75 people, proprietary, or 100, you don't necessarily have somebody. We're working on getting a PSM person in every position and every facility. I do believe if you're not vigilant on it, it falls by the wayside. We just had an issue with management of change at my facility where the company missed a guy on training, and it came back on us. But I do believe by negotiating that position, we have raised the bar on it, but we still have a long way to go. I think you can fall back into why it was started to begin with, which was the contractors in '89 and the Phillips explosion that killed 23 people. Without that law, though, I think we would be sunk. But trying to educate people to what the law is in the United States is a challenge. I will tell you that.
Ryan, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to reply to my Unifor brother. Process safety in Canada is governed by the Process Safety Committee of the Canadian Society for Chemical Engineering. And you can find on their website the full guidance. It's slightly different from the OSHA version of process safety management. It's similar, like they derive from the same sort of concepts, but I think the Canadian version you'll find is slightly better on workers' involvement. So I would urge you to go and have a look at that. I'm quite familiar with it because for several years I was a member of that committee. So that's where my knowledge is quite direct about what the Canadian version of process safety management is. Thanks.
Thank you all. Now we have a question. It's a double. We have two questions for Afolabi that I'm going to make in only one. Are there other initiatives by the non-unionized workers to improve health and safety? And are you aware that contractor personnel are anchored in today's Safety Day in Shell? Please, Afolabi.
No, the second part of it, let me have the question again, please, the first part.
Yeah, the first part is, Are there other initiatives by the non-unionized workers to improve health and safety? That is from our colleague Stella Prot. And we have the second one from a colleague from Nigeria about the contract personnel entering today Safety Day in Shell.
Okay. Number one, the first question, the non-unionized workers, they don't even have a single voice to make any input into health and safety issue. They are not represented, and any attempt to even unionize them leads to their sack. So for them to even make agitation about health and safety, it's dangerous for their work. Contract workers are not part of Health and Safety Day. They don't do anything. They don't even know about it. I spoke with the vice chairman last night. He was not talking about it. So health and safety issue, Safety Day is like, to me, for Shell, is just like advertisement to advertise the brand, not really to look into the core issue of health and safety at workplaces in their operations outside United States, Canada, and Netherlands. In other developing countries, health and safety issue is just about numbers. It's not really about the personnel. It's not really about the workers. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Now we have another question to Brian from Munimar Abdaman from Singapore. He's asking if has anything changed now with the COVID-19 and our rights? Do we have the same rights if we talk about COVID or another occupational disease?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that I was anticipating that question. The situation with the COVID crisis, everybody thinks that it's changed everything, but in some ways it's really changed nothing. I mean, we would demand the same rights as we have always demanded, the right to know what the hazards and risks are, the right to refuse unsafe work. So if we feel that the company has not taken proper precautions against the risk of the virus, we should have the right to refuse, as we would for any other workplace hazard. And we want the right to participate. We want to be part of the decision making when it's decided what's going to be done. So all of the measures that need to be taken in a world where we are at risk of infection from COVID-19 or any other biohazard, you know, there's personal hygiene measures, washing your hands and social distancing and wearing masks and so on. And there's industrial hygiene measures, you know, sterilizing surfaces and equipment and tools and controls and all of those things. There's management of safety issues, like how do you deal with handover equipment at shift change. And there's all kinds of issues to do with record keeping and follow up and tracking and tracing and privacy. But all of these issues are not fundamentally different and don't fundamentally change our view of health and safety in workplaces. It's an additional challenge, but the tools to address them are the same as they have always been. You know, workers' rights, management responsibilities, and we want to be part of the decision because it's our lives. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. And now we are running out of time, so I would like to ask the last question. This is coming from Ali Atza from Morocco. Why has Shell distanced itself from Industrial? Could the situation of workers in Shell improve if Industrial and Shell work together? Maybe Kemal?
Yeah, I think this question needs to be asked to the company, because we have been raising these questions, I don't know how many times, with our letters, with in shareholders meeting, and they categorically refuse any kind of dialogue with us. And Industrial Global Union has a primary concern about Shell's behaviors, particularly in resource-rich developing countries, as our brother from Nigeria, Brother Afolabi, already indicated. Because what they do about that, they undermine, disrespect fundamental rights, they disrespect the recognized trade unions, and they use excessive contract workers without any protection. And they just try to get all the profits in their records without leaving anything to the country concerned, without leaving anything to the workers. So this is why this situation is unacceptable. And Industrial Global Union has been campaigning. One of the objectives of the campaign is to open a table where we discuss as equal partners all our problems in a civilized manner. That is the key issue. Since the company is categorically refusing this, then again, I announce here that so it is the commitment for Industrial Global Union to the fight back, to campaign until the justice arrives in workplaces of Shell, and also a recognition for a global dialogue is arranged. So this is why until this happens, we will continue to conduct our campaign together with all our sisters and brothers in Global North, Global South, because it is the policy of Industrial Global Union to establish genuine constructive dialogue with multinational companies. In case they refuse it, like the one Shell is doing, then the only option for us is to fight back, is to campaign. And that is what we are doing at the moment. So I invite the colleague raising this question is to raise this question to the local management in the operation where he conducts his duty. And then we need to exert pressure from everywhere over the management, top management of Shell, that they have to enter into a structured and the respectful dialogue with the organized workforce through their global union, IndustriALL.
Thank you very much, Kemal. We have just last question that just come in for Lee. Is about what are the special treatment for the workers in this COVID-19? They're asking for you.
Not a whole lot of special equipment, masks. They have gone to cleaning things better, trying to keep people, not as many people in the control rooms getting permits, but it's mainly the mask and social distancing. Outside of that, there's no special equipment dealing with COVID. So that's it. I did want to add, in the US right now, the political climate is so bad for workers. It's unbelievable. And we're actually losing health and safety footage by executive order. Brian probably knows about the RMP, which the risk management program policy. You have to tell the community how much of a chemical you have, and you have to draw a diagram of how the wind would take it and how it would affect the communities. In my plant in Deer Park, there's a elementary school to the north and a high school to the south. That is no longer, that information no longer has to be turned over to the public because they claim that it's in national security to keep the terrorists from knowing. But what it actually does is keeps the community from understanding the plumes. We've had for years, we've had the right, if OSHA comes into a plant, to have a union representative with them automatically, and we're losing that. So the political climate in the US, we're circling the wagon. It's not a progressive, what can we do? Right now it's a, how do we keep what we have? situation. So I don't know what to say other than we're in a massive fight just for to hang on to what we have.
Brian, please.
Just a quick thought for Lee. Maybe you've already thought of this, but I mean, in the United States these days, workers are certainly not respected. However, most Americans still kind of idolize first responders like firefighters. And firefighters, you might be able to find that you could make allies with them on this issue, because they certainly don't want to report to fight a fire in a plant where they have no idea what the chemicals are. So that's maybe a bit of a PR lever you could use. Just a thought.
Yeah, most of our firefighters don't come into our plants. The plants are big enough that they have their own fire crew because they don't want questions asked when they come in. So we do work with the firefighters through the AFL-CIO, but most of the locations have, or they've jointly combined 4 or 5 plants. We had a major fire at a Dow facility a couple years ago, and of course they lied to people on what was being burnt, and there's a ton of lawsuits. That's the only way you can actually go after them here in the U.S. is lawsuit. But thank you for the idea, Brian.
Thank you all. We don't have time for more questions, but I would like to ask the panelists if any of you have something, a last final comment that you want to raise, to mention as a closure.
I would like to say, Diana, to thank everybody here, because the only way you can fight Shell, I believe Kamal said it several times, is if we join together. And we do have these webinars and we do discuss things, because talking with the Netherlands, you know, we have just transition is starting to creep out into the language in the US. And to have some knowledge of that just from listening to what's going on in the Netherlands is helpful to me and the US. Being able to talk to people about what's going on in Nigeria is people, it's funny because people actually struggle to believe this goes on. And I'm like, it's not just going on, it's going on every day. So I think with IndustriALL, it really brings us together to be able to discuss all of us, instead of, as Kamal said, they're trying to separate us off and section us off, and we all have to stand together as one. So I appreciate everybody on here and you putting this together, Diana.
Yeah, thank you, Diana, for putting this together, because I think what Lee is mentioning, yes, this is something that we can do together. And well, I think sometimes it's hard for me to understand how, I mean, you describe situations which I can't imagine almost. I mean, so it's really good to just share this information, and also to our members. And I think today is a brilliant day, because what I did is I also invited the management and the direction of Shell of the Netherlands to join our webinar. So I hope they join. I don't know, but so I asked them, and otherwise I will just send them this video, because I think this is where safety is about. So thank you for sharing all, because I think, well, this is, thank you.
From Nigeria, on behalf of the blue collar work and the workers and the other oil and gas workers, I want to sincerely appreciate IndustriALL, first of all, for the wonderful work IndustriALL is doing globally. Then I want to particularly mention Diana and the support she's getting from the headquarters of IndustriALL. Coming to Nigeria some times ago was really, really heartwarming, and I can't describe the feelings of the workers. That we travel down to their houses to interview and exchange words with the family of the bereaved workers. And we also took the risk to visit some of the installation. Even with all the negative reports coming about the Niger Delta, you dare the consequences and you travel down. We are really appreciative of what you did. And please, Kama, don't think what we are doing is not effective. The result may not come out at once. The result may not come out in a big way, but instrumentally, in piecemeal, result is coming. We were engaged in Nigeria by some of the Shell management staff about our effort in Hague at their board meeting. So they are aware that IndustriALL is doing all this. And believe you me, day before yesterday, somebody contacted me from the management level of Shell talking about this webinar. Now, why are we still doing this? We said IndustriALL is our global union. So IndustriALL is reaching out. And the only way to engage global company like Shell is to keep it at global level like this. They don't like to be put on the world scale, on the world stage. They don't want to be told. They don't want to be exposed. And that's why they're avoiding us. That's why they're avoiding IndustriALL. If they want to be transparent, if they know they have nothing bad in their cupboard, they will relate with you. So this is the best weapon. The best weapon is to engage them there. Come on to the social media. Come on with our talk. Let us keep engaging. Let us keep talking. We'll get there one day. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Afolabi, for your kind words. This is what we are trying to do in IndustriALL. We want to stay close to the workers on the field and support them as much as we can. And for sure, with these kind of actions and activities is the way that we have to give solidarity to all workers worldwide. So I would like to thank you all, thank all the panelists. Thanks for your great interventions and discussion. I think that this has been the first webinar, but I hope that it won't be the last. So thank you all. Thanks also to the viewers. We will upload the different versions with the different languages on our Facebook for you to watch it and forward it to the Shell company and whoever you want to share with. So thank you all, and thanks also to the interpreters. Thank you very much. See you soon. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.